Hi, welcome to the second part of this three-part screencast. So just a quick recap. So what we are trying to build is a photo upload application. So the photo upload, so you can upload your photo from a web application on the PC onto the server, and then you can have devices or other web application observing the server. So when a new photo is uploaded, a push notification will be sent out from the server to the client. So in the first part, we built the photo upload application. The back end is running on Java EE7, and the front end we used AngularJS. So in this second part, what we'll do is this: we will now add in the notification portion. So in the notification portion, we are going to use WebSocket, and again we're going to use AngularJS on the front end. So let's begin. So what I'll do is this. So I'm continuing from where I left off last week. So what I'm going to do now is this: I'm going to write a simple WebSocket application. So I'm going to call this so I'm going to call this Photostream socket. So WebSocket is a new addition into the Java EE7 platform. So let me do that. Okay, so I will say server endpoint, and I'm going to call this endpoint event. Okay, so now just a few annotations. The first annotation is going to be on open. So on open, so when the connection when a new socket connection comes in, this method will be called. So in session. So this is, so make sure you get the correct parameter. So you want the WebSocket session. Okay, so I'm just going to print out for debugging purposes. I'm just going to print out do a print line statement, and maybe I'll just do a get the ID of the socket. Okay, I can also on close. Okay, so I'll just also do a print out. So okay, so these two methods will be called. So if you want to, for example, listen to incoming message, you can also do this on message. Okay, like this. So there are different ways of getting the message. WebSocket allows you to have binary or text message. So for example, if I just want to, just for simplicity, I want to get like a text message, I can say string message. I can go session. Okay, let me just print out. Like that. Okay. Now for our application, for our current application, for the push, we don't actually receive any messages from the client. Okay, we only send messages from the server to the client, not the other way around. But I'm just putting it here so you can actually see when we test the application. Okay, so now my application is done. So let me clean and build this, and then I'm going to deploy the application. Okay, so now let's run the application. So what I'm going to do is this: I'm going to, let me just put this here and do this. So let me just make this on top. Okay, so I'm going to use the advanced client again, but this time I'm going to use the, so let me clear this first. Okay, so I'm going to use the WebSocket, and the way to use that is I'm going to copy this. Okay, and oops, so I'm going to say this is WebSocket. So this is the WebSocket connection. So we're going to connect to event, right? So that is our server, our application name, and the event. So let's try connecting. So if we connect, we will notice that there's a new connection, right? So if we disconnect, you see that it's been disconnected. So let's try connecting again. So get new connection. So if I type a message, and I send it out, so I'll see the message. So the message is sent from the client to the server. Okay, so now we have got that this application, we've got our sockets sent up. So what we'll do is this: we'll use this socket to send notifications to all the connected clients who are interested in our in observing our Photostream. Okay, so what we're going to need now is a way of getting the session. So the session is really the connection, the stateful connection from the browser, in this case from here to the server. So what we really need is to get this session to our upload servlet. So the idea is this: when a new connection comes in, we save this session object somewhere, and then when there is a new upload, what we'll do is this: the servlet will get the session object and notify each connected client. Okay, so in Java EE, so in a lot of cases we will use like a static singleton object or a static object. So in Java EE there is this there is CDI, and CDI allows us to create singleton global objects. So these are called application scope objects. So I'm going to create a class called session repository. Okay, now remember, we cannot save the session object, this session, to database, because these are live connections. Okay, so I'm going to annotate this with application scope. Okay, and what I'm going to do is this: I'm going to create, so this is going to be very simple. I'm just going to create a set to hold my session. So we'll say session. So make sure I get the right session. Okay, so I'm going to call it sessions. Okay, so because we are running it in a multi-threaded environment, I will probably also going to need a lock. So I'm going to use the read-write lock. Okay, okay. So very simple. I'm just going to say public void add a session. So when there's a new session, we will just add a session. So we say sessions add a session, right? And when a connection closes, we will just close the session. You do the same thing. You say remove. Okay, we'll close the session. So since you're running in a multi-threaded environment, we need to lock it. Okay, so I'm going to create a method like a guard. So I'll say public void read lock. So the read lock method will take in a runnable, and then what we'll do, so this is a read lock. So what you do is this: you will say lock read lock. So get me the read lock. So I will now do a lock on it. Then I'll go try runnable. You'll do a run, and then finally lock unlock. So I'll do the same thing for for write. So this is going to be a write lock. Okay, so they're exactly the same. Okay, so let's see how we use this. So what we do is this: we inject in the session repository. Okay, inject session. So when there's a new session, what we do is this: we will say repository add the session. Right now, since there may be other thread, other clients connecting to the server, and then when we update this, there may be a race condition. So now we can say repository. So since we're going to perform a write, we want exclusive log. We will say give me a write log, and then I'll take this and stick it in here. Right, so we got this method in here. So we do the same thing again for a close. Right, so instead of add, we do a remove. Okay, so quite simple, right? So okay, so this is, let me just undeploy this first. Okay, right, so now all we need to do is go back to the servlet and we do the same thing. So we now say inject private session repository. Okay, so what we're going to do is this: after we have written the result back to the client, we will now send a notification to our clients. Okay, so what we're going to do is this: we're going to need to have a method to do that notification. So let's come back to session repository and we'll do a broadcast. So this object, what we are broadcasting it is actually this thing, our object. Okay, so since we are only going to send string, so I will say to string. Okay, then now I will say for all session try. So I'll get session, get basic remote, send our text data, catch. Okay, so we'll ignore any update. So very simple. When we broadcast, we will just broadcast the data, the object will convert to string, and then we just dump to every single one of them. So in the upload servlet, we say same thing again, repository. So now we want to get the read log, and then we say repository broadcast the result. Okay, so simple. When the connection comes in, we add to the repository, and when there is upload, we just broadcast the result. So let's try running this application and see what happens. Okay, so I'm going to deploy this. Okay, so let me just move this out of the way, and we will now test the application. So I'm going to open up this too. Okay, so let me just reload this thing. So I'm going to okay, so now we make a connection first, assuming this is our client. We're going to make a connection first. So we're going to connect. Oops, so let me just try this again. Something wrong. Let me just try this again. Okay, so connect. Okay, so connect. So now we choose a file to upload. So let's come here. So let's go quiz. Okay, so when we upload, we should see the image push here. So let's try that again. Try another one. Let's do the doc, and we perform upload, and that's the second one, right? So now the servlet is uploading, is notifying our client. So let me disconnect this. Okay, so our application is now done. At least the push portion is now done. So what we are going to do next is we are now going to write a a front-end client to connect using WebSocket to connect onto to our server to receive notifications. So let me undeploy this application first. Okay. So what we're going to do now is this. I'm going to create an HTML file called viewer. Okay. I'm also going to create a JavaScript file, and I'm going to also create a CSS file. Okay, so let me just close all this. Okay, so the viewer application is very simple. So let me just set up my library first. So I'm going to say script libs. We're going to use Angular JS. Okay, and then I'm going to say style sheet. I'm going to say build my style sheet, and then I'm going to also hook in my my JavaScript file. So let's say I'm going to say source viewer okay, like that. So what I'm going to do now is this. I'm going to say h1 Photostream. Okay, I'm going to have a button that allows me to connect. Okay, and then I will have like okay, so now I'm going to have a div, and this div will hold an image which will update. So what is going to happen is this: whenever there is a new photo, this div, the application will update this div. Okay, so this is roughly how our viewer is going to look like. So now let's go ahead and write the application. Okay, so I'm going to call this. So I'm going to call this var viewer app Angular module viewer app, and we do not have any dependencies. Okay, so I'm going to create a service called Photostream service to connect using WebSocket to connect to our server. So viewer app service. So I'm going to call this Photostream service, and the Photostream service has one dependency. We're going to inject in the root scope, and I'll tell you why we need the root scope. Okay, like that. So now we're going to write the service. Okay, so I'm going to have so this is the socket. So I'm going to have a method that says connect. Okay, so this oops. Okay, so the connect will take a callback. So every time when there's a message, we will invoke the callback to pass the data over. So once we got connect, we will say this socket equals to new web socket, and we're going to use this is our web socket. So we're going to say oops, what happened? Okay, so anyway, it doesn't seem like this. So let's try this again. So we will say it doesn't seem to want to do cut and paste. So let me just type this WebSocket localhost 8080 Photostream event. So make sure that I don't type wrongly. So it's WS localhost 8080 Photostream event. Okay. So once I've got that, I will now attach a listener to it on message. Okay, so when there's a message, so what we need to do is this: we now need to the result. Okay, so this result is actually this data, right? So, and remember we are sending a string, so we need to convert this into a JSON object, but I'll show you I'll show you that later. So now what we need to do is this: we need to go callback, and then we say JSON pass result.data. So the WebSocket data is in data. Now so it looks like we can actually do this, but we cannot call the callback directly. The reason is because this function is executed outside of the context of AngularJS. So when you perform a callback, Angular doesn't really know about it. So Angular cannot update the model and the views and stuff like that. So what you need to do is this: so you need to manually start the digest cycle. So for those of you who do not know what is a digest cycle is basically it's a process that Angular starts whenever you update the model. That's how Angular is a mechanism that Angular used to keep the view and the model in sync. So because the onMessage, this function is executed outside of Angular. So whenever we perform an update, Angular doesn't know about it. Okay, so what we need to do is that we need to say we need to manually start the digest cycle. So to manually start the digest cycle, that's why I've injected in the root scope. So we say root scope, and then we say $apply. Now we say function, run this function in here. So what we are saying is start the digest cycle, run this function inside the digest cycle. Okay, so since this is now inject cycle, when we perform the callback to our controller, the controller will the callback in the controller will be run inside Angular context. Okay, so that's the connect. So we'll just leave it like that. Okay, so if you want to, we can put a simple debug statement here just to see the data. What is the data? So we can say console log result. Okay, so remember this data is actually a string, so we need to pass it into JSON to call Angular. Pass it into JSON. Of course, if you don't pass it into JSON, then the callback needs to perform the same this process. So now what we are going to do is this: we are going to say app. We're going to create a controller, and we will now inject in our scope as well as the Photostream service. Okay, so I'm going to write the controller. Right, so I'm going to define an array called photos. So what photos will do is this: photos will hold this image, this value, right? Okay, so now I'm going to have a thing that have a event handler that says connect. So I will say function. Now I will say Photostream service connect. I'll pass in a function. So this is the callback. So the callback will have the data So when we call connect, this function is passed into here, right? So passed into here, and this callback is used. This function is used as a callback when there is a message. Okay, so when a message comes, we pass the data into JSON, we pass it back to here. So now in here, what we will do is this: we will now say scope photos. We want to push new photos to the front, so I'll use unshift, and then I'm just only going to push the name. So I'll say data image name. Okay, so we just want to push the image name into the array. So that's it. That's our application. So let's run through this again. So we create an Angular application. We create a service. So the service in this service I'm injecting in the root scope. So this is the service. So I've got one of these. I created a variable called socket, which actually hosts the socket. So and then I've got a function. Let me just outline here. I've got a function called connect, which takes a callback. So when we click on the connect button, we will pass in a callback. So the callback is used whenever we receive a new data in OnMessage. So let me just bump this one more line again so you can see this. Okay, so when we receive new data, what we'll do is this: we will start the digest cycle and perform our callback. At the same time, because we want to be nice, we pass the result in. Because we want to pass the data as JSON, we pass the data. We convert data as JSON. So this data is actually string. So why is it string? Because in here in our photo socket, we are sending it. Sorry, not here. Here in our session. In here, when we are broadcasting a message, we are sending it as text. So because we're sending it as text, when we receive it, so this is text, so we need to pass it into JSON. Okay. Second point also, when we send the data, right? Okay, when we're sending the data here, remember this is a JSON object. Okay, so this is effectively a JSON string. So that is why we are passing the data here back into JSON. Okay. So now let's hook up our application to the viewer. So we will say ng app viewer app. Okay, we'll now say ng controller viewer controller. Okay, so this guy here we will say ng click, and then we'll say connect. Okay, so this is the diff that is going to handle the that's going to be updated. So we say ng repeat. Okay, so p in photos. So let me just make sure I get this right. In photos. So this is photos, and then now we say ng source. So since we are retrieving it from images from this directory, so we say p. Okay, right. So let's size all the image to 200 width. So I'm going to say, so I'm going to create a class. So photo, so say 200. Okay, so I'm going to say width. Okay, so I'm going to here. Okay, so let's run this application and see what happens. So I'm going to do a clean and build of the application, and now I'm going to deploy the application. So let me just delete it and move this over here. So we will now look at the viewer. Okay, so let me see if there's any error. Okay, so no error. So what I'll do now is this: I will connect. So let me reload this. So now I will open up, and so and now I'm going to upload. So now the photo comes. So let's do another one. Upload, so the photo is pushed to the top. So just do one more. To the top. Okay. Right. Okay. So since the photo, so if you notice, right, when we upload the photo, so just do a little bit of eye candy. So since when we upload the photo, you notice it's very jerky. So what I'm going to do now is this. I am going to use animation, angular animation, to make it smoother. So let me undeploy this application first. I'll show you how to use angular animate. So we will grab power, and then we will say I'm going to get angular animate. So I'm going to add Angular animate. Okay, so looks like Angular has got a new version. Okay, so I'm going to use the old version of animate, just so that not sure what okay, so okay, so I've installed Angular animate. So now I'm going to add Angular animate to here, Angular animate, and okay. So the next thing I'll do is just create a define a dependency animate. So now what we want to do is this. Let's say we do something simple. We want to just fade every time when the photo comes. We just want to fade in, right? So in the div here, we will define a class. So I'm just going to call it animate this. Okay. So what you need to do is that you need to do a few things. So you come to your CSS. The first thing you need to do is this. You need to define a class called animate this, and then you say ng animate. Okay, so in here you define how the animation is going to go. So I will say let's use so let's say the transition duration is, let's say, 500 millisecond. Oops, 500 millisecond. Transition property, let's say I want opacity. Transition function, let's go linear. Okay, so this is how the animation is going to be. So now we will define two states. The first state when the animation is starting and the animation is entering. So for ng animate, in this case we want it to animate when we add a photo into the list. Okay, so to do that you go and animate ng, I think it's called enter. So so what ng enter does is this, right? When animation starts, Angular will append the ng enter to this class, and then we say this is the first state or the first frame. So we want to say what is the what is the state of the image. So for example, so since we are fading in, then the opacity is 0, right? Okay, so the final state is 1. Okay, so what we are saying is this: we are going from when the loop starts and is drawing a new picture, it starts from 0, which is opacity is totally transparent, to 1, which is solid. And the way it's going to do this animation is that it's going to do it over 500 millisecond, and it's going to use a linear timing function to do that. Okay, so for this thing you specify this class. So let's try it again. So now we will deploy the application and we'll move this one side. So let me do that again. So I'm going to say viewer. Okay, so I will now connect. So now I will choose, let me reload this. So let me choose a file. So let's just choose the doc. Okay, upload. So the doc fades in 500 milliseconds. So let's do something else. Let's do render. Okay, so let's do one more. Okay, so that's the end of the second part. So what we have effectively done is we have when someone uploads the photo, we can see it being uploaded on another screen. So for example, we could actually open up another view and connect to it. Okay, and then now if we choose one more picture and we upload, we'll notice that both of them is updated. So we've got effectively two observers observing our photo stream. So let's run through the application again one more time. It's actually quite simple. So let's start with the socket. So with the socket, you just define a socket. So when there's a new connection, you add it to like a global object, a singleton object. In this case, I'm using the Java EE's application scope object to hold my object. So when the connection opens, you add it to the repository. In this case, the set of sessions, and when it closes, I'll remove it from the session. So whenever there is a photo upload, whenever there's upload, what I'll do is after I've written the image to my image directory, I will now broadcast out the result. So what I'm broadcasting out is this particular this simple JSON object. Of course, in a real application, you may have not only the image, but you may have some command, the time, etc., other information, right? So I'm broadcasting out. So any WebSocket connection that connects to this socket now is connected. Now gets pushed the data. The data get pushed to it. So in our viewer application, our Angular application is very simple. I just create a div that displays image. Then I just create a function, a simple function, a connect function. So when somebody clicks on the connect button, I'll call connect, passing in a callback. I create the WebSocket, assign it to this socket, then assign the OnMessage, and whenever we receive the message, okay, we start the digest cycle, pass the result. In this case, I'm passing the result into JSON and call the callback. So that's it. Okay. So next time we will convert this in a third and final part. We will convert this photo upload into a mobile app using Ionic framework. So you can now use your mobile phone to snap a picture and then upload it to the server, and then the server will push it out to the photo stream. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.